Welcome, Jérémy, and enjoy everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm quite pleased to see that there are so many people who were interested in the topic. I hope that despite its length, the title was a bit catchy. Thank you, Alexandra, for inviting me to present here. So today, the menu, except for what you have in front of you, we also have creativity and ways to scaffold creativity in groups. And we will discuss the use of AI in this type of activities. So this is work done for sure with Denis, my supervisor, but this is a collaborative work. We involved already a lot of people, PhD students. Hello, welcome. Two PhD students from University of Neuchâtel who collaborated with me, other researchers from EPFL, from the University of Lausanne also. So thank these people for helping me with this project and for their fruitful collaboration. So, scaffolding creativity. What do I mean by that? So I guess in a lot of courses, especially in engineering and EPFL, you have a lot of project-based approaches, design-based approaches where we give some open-ended problem to groups of students, and those students at some point in the process, they have to come up with ideas on how to solve the problem, how to influence the situation. And the thing is, we just ask them to come up with some ideas. And in a lot of situations, we might lack some structure, or we don't give them tools or I would say approach to do that efficiently. And the most common way to avoid that type of activities is what is called brainstorming. Everyone knows about brainstorming as maybe we have a more kind of naive definition of what the brainstorming is. The idea of we put people around the table and we ask them to come up with ideas, share the ideas, discuss, refine them, select the best ones at the end, and then they will pursue these the selected ideas in the rest of their project. But when you do that this way, there are many social effects that are involved. One of these social effects is the fear of judgment. So for sure, when you expose your ideas to your peer, your ideas are judged, and somehow you're also judged by your peers based on your ideas. And this can create some kind of self-censorship. So you will not propose some ideas because you fear that you will be judged negatively by your peers. And there is another effect, or there are many effects, I won't cover all of them. Another effect, idea fixation, is also that as soon as someone has a good idea, or the group agrees that it's a good idea, you start thinking about only this idea and just like iterating over the same idea over and over. And this is the premature convergence towards these limited set of ideas. And sometimes it's, at some point you have to do that, but the problem is that sometimes, and most of the time, it's premature, and you would need to explore more the possibilities before choosing the right ideas. So we thought about two things. We had those two effects in mind because they are very common and very well documented. And we thought, okay, actually we could design a kind of environment to help people ideate, to generate ideas, so kind of a digital brainstorming tool. And we can provide anonymity. This is not a very new idea. A lot of people have done that already. And on top of that, we can also help them by suggesting new ideas to break this idea fixation effect. The idea fixation effect might be, you can sustain the iteration and the generation of ideas by just suggesting new and different ideas that other people had not thought about, and force the group to continue to generate new ideas. So that's what we did end of 2023 until middle of 2024. I developed, in that case, an online tool. the kind of prototype where it's quite simple in principle. You just have a board where you have a problem statement that is given to the students, and the students, they can enter their ideas. Everything is collaborative. So you see the proposition of the others. And at some point, we added AI participants, so kind of artificial peers that act as a student who also propose their ideas. And we try to prepare to prompt and configure this AI. So it's based on the GPT models to try to generate divergent ideas, new ideas, the most original ideas that they could to propose to the students. So we developed that, and we went to some classes where they were doing those kind of brainstorming in a more naive way, and we tried it to see if we sustain the collaboration and the generation of ideas. One thing that is important here is that because we integrated that in Grasp, it was also a good thing we could really configure the activity. So you can configure the artificial peer, you can configure the prompt, you can have a whole environment that helps managing the activity in a very easy and smooth ways. And we also realized that it helps a lot the teachers in organizing and doing this type of activity at scale. So when you have hundreds of students and you have many groups, you can just give them access to this activity. And the process was, I would say, quite efficient in terms of material also, because you don't need to have a whiteboard for each group. You can do that in a more traditional classroom setting. So for the orchestration of the session, just the fact that you have this type of environment can help already a lot. And we also put anonymity. So the ideas that you submit in this tool are anonymous. And you'll see after that it is useful, even if the people are in the same class, are sitting next to each other. We already realized that it helped students have expressed themselves with anonymous ideas. And one last thing is that we separated two things, the divergent thinking phase and the convergent thinking phase. So the idea of generating ideas and selecting those ideas. So I talked about AI. So we had the artificial peer. I will present that the other way around. So we had the artificial peer that was powered by the large language model from OpenAI. So the first version was GPT 3.5, then we updated to 4, then 4.0, and eventually we are even in 4.01 now. So one thing to note is also that each experiment was with a different model because, well, the technology evolved, and we try to always use the last one. We did not see a huge difference, but the rapid ecosystem of AI is changing so fast that it's almost impossible to do an experiment and repeat the exact same experiment. I mean, you could use 3.5 still today, but no one would really care about the results because the technology has already evolved so much. And one other thing that we tried in one of the experiments is to put the AI between the students and say, okay, to strengthen the anonymity, we can also use the AI to transform all ideas to be kind of a ChatGPT style text. I guess that you all realize, you all have an idea of how text generated by ChatGPT look like. And if you take the ideas of the students who might have different level of English or even French in some activities, so their language might be different, their way of expressing might be different. And if they know each other quite well, they might recognize, oh, well, this is Tim, this is Nolan, and they have their own style. If you pass a filter, eventually it's not possible to recognize whose idea is.
Just a question, did the initial person writing it somehow liberate it to say, yes, this is still my idea, but formulated differently, or they were out of the loop at that moment?
You mean when you...
The person writes an idea, the LLM makes it look more general and not personally identifiable, will the person then receive it back to say, yes, this still represents my idea, or
No,
no?
and that was an issue.
Okay.
Yeah. But what we did was fully automatic, only one way. And yes, it was an issue because a lot of students were frustrated and said that, well, their ideas was not well represented. But what we also found out is that a lot of students were helped by this, especially non-native English speaker, because their ideas was sometimes expressed even better than what they wanted to express. By So, well, we have a few research questions. The first one was about this idea of strengthening anonymity. Second one about, does it enhance the creative of the participant to have suggestions that are generated by AI? And does this whole thing, does these AI tools also improve the user experience, just the perception of how the activity is? So we did multiple studies, two main field studies in kind of design-based learning scenarios where at some point you really have this step of doing a brainstorming to find the idea that you want to pursue in the rest of your project. And in two of those, in the two field studies, there were multitask. So each group had a different task, which also limits the comparability of each group. So we also did one lab study in November. I will not show you all the results because we're still not done analyzing that, but where we gave this single task to all the groups to really be able to compare the groups easily. And I talk about a special study focused on authorship and responsibilities. And one thing that we changed between the first and the second study was that the AI became identifiable, because first it was also anonymous, so you could actually say that some ideas were from the AI because you could recognize them, but it was not shown in the interface. The first study looked like that. We're just two different conditions. One control where students were using the tool but without the AI. The other half were using the tool with the AI. We asked them to generate ideas. You see, it's a very short activity, so it's 3 rounds of 3 minutes. And here we used a round-based approach. So instead of having people collaborate in real time, we asked them to generate ideas for 3 minutes. Then we shared the ideas together. Then generate ideas for 3 minutes. Then all the ideas were shared in the group. And at the end, they would evaluate all the ideas and then a questionnaire on the user experience. Just about the idea evaluation, we made something like that where we asked them to evaluate how novel and how useful were the ideas. And well, what we found out in this first study is that the AI is generating more novel ideas according to participants. And after that, we also rated the ideas ourselves, which confirmed this first result. But we didn't see any difference between the people trying to generate ideas with the suggestion of the AI or without.
Can you tell me again, explain exactly how you measure the novelty of an idea?
So
who's judging that?
So in that figure, it's the judgment of the students themselves because they rated the ideas at the end.
Right.
And so each idea was rated by, most of them were rated by all the students in the group. Some were not rated by all.
The students also rate their own ideas?
And the students also rated their own ideas.
And did you validate student ratings of novelty against some expert ratings of novelty?
Yes, we did that. I think is the next one. We took a rubric that has been developed by another research group, and we tried. It was phrased slightly differently. The rubric was more to evaluate the innovativeness of an idea, but we still applied that the same way. And we had 2 people rating all the ideas, and we had more or less the same results. Like the difference between the AI-generated ideas and person's ideas is still quite strong. But the difference of only the ideas generated by the humans, by the students, in both conditions, there is no strong difference.
Okay.
Yes.
Did this take into account the effect of formulation? So the human-generated ideas were also reformulated in an AI kind of way?
Yeah, in that case, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And we also, well, so that's in the first experiment, we also asked them 2 questions about how they perceived the reformulation and the anonymity. And well, fear is not very easy to read, but globally the ratings were quite positive. And I'll show you another figure afterwards. We confirmed those results, especially towards anonymity. Students felt more comfortable thanks to anonymity, according to their own self-report, in that setting, and we had the same results when we reproduced the study. And in that context, the students were sitting next to each other in the classroom. Yes.
To what extent was the chatbot like gameable? If I only wrote a couple of words, would it rephrase it enough that it would generate an idea of its own?
Yes, and a few students thought about that and discovered that and used that. Not very much, like 2 or 3 students out of 30, but yeah, a few students realized that, oh, actually I can just give it 2 keywords and it would generate an idea for me. Other students try to like game the system and get the bot to generate something completely different, but we discarded those ideas. And then this question, third one from the bottom, the referred formulation helped me to express myself in English better. And we have, so there is a strong agreement with that. And we also asked an open question about how they thought about reformulation by the chatbot. And a few people, I think 5 or 6 out of 30 participants said specifically that yes, it helped them because they are not non-native English speaker and helped them express themselves. And well, one limitation of this study was the time limit. So we could not really, we were not sure that the effect was just not there, or if it's just because the time constraint was so big and it was difficult for them to incorporate the ideas of the other ideas of the AI. So we tried to do other experiments where the time constraint was a bit relaxed. So we tried to confirm all of these with second study, larger ones, with about 100 students. And here we have actually 4 conditions. So we have also the humans and AI. But here we have also another thing, is that we compare the round-based collaboration with purely live collaboration, where students were just in real time were exchanging ideas. And first thing that we measured, quite easy, the fluency, so the number of ideas that people generated in a given amount of time. And we realized 2 things. So first, there is no clear difference between the different conditions. There might be a small effect when there is no agent. In live, they generate slightly more ideas, but the effect is very small. But we realized one thing is the time. We gave them a time constraint, but we did not enforce it. So we told them there was in the app a small timer, and at the end of the timer, one person in the group was responsible to move to the next step. So they had the possibility to extend the time if they needed. And what we realized is that when they were interacting in live, they almost all respected the 15 minutes. But in the round-based, it took them much more time. But the cool thing is that we could observe how linear is the relationship between the number of ideas and the time. And the correlation is like 0.96. So there's really, well, it's not a surprise, but here it's very, very clear that there's a relationship between the time spent and the number of ideas. And in those 15 and even almost 20 minutes, we did not reach the point of saturation where people would just stop generating ideas. It's also an indicator that with those type of tasks, we could have probably have given more time if you wanted more ideas. My hypothesis is that if you give them 30 minutes, you probably get a plateau at some point.
Can I ask one more
Yes.
question about the quantity of ideas? Is it just the amount of utterances of ideas, or is it, do you group them before? Like, if I say it has to be green and he says it has to be light green,
No,
is it the same
not
idea?
in that case.
Okay, so it could be overlapping
Yeah,
ideas.
exactly. It could
Yeah,
be
okay.
overlapping ideas. And we also thought about elaboration of the ideas, so how long are the ideas? Here we counted the number of words after removing the stop words. It's some people consider it a good approximation of good proxy for the elaboration of the concepts behind the ideas. But here there is no strong difference between the conditions. But what we realized also when doing this analysis in other experiments, the length, there is a tendency, a small tendency, for students that were working with the AI to have the length of their ideas closer to the length of the ideas generated by the AI. So there might be an influence, but the effect is also quite small, and probably you need to generate a lot of ideas and to expose the students a lot to the AI so that they conform to this at some point. But yes, the example of the AI might have a small influence. And the last thing, which I think is the most interesting, is the originality of the ideas. So here, unfortunately, we couldn't finish for today to do the rating by hand, but we had already done an automatic rating of originality. For that, we use a fine-tuned language model. It's not something that we developed, but it's another group who developed that. They fine-tuned a language model to provide a score of originality of an idea. And they showed that there is a strong correlation with human raters for a lot of open-ended tasks, but we will validate this result with our own rating. When we found that with this automatic evaluation, not a huge difference between the different conditions. So doing the activity by round or live or having an agent or not is not very influential, but there is a small effect in live conditions and with the AI agent. You see that the originality is the effect is getting positive. And only positive. Confidence interval doesn't include 0 in that case. But it's still a very, very small effect. And we confirm that the ideas of the AI are actually more original. Same thing that we found out in the previous study. So the AI is generating ideas that are considered more original, but the students are not generating ideas more original with the help of the AI. And then we turn to the user experience, and we were actually very surprised to see quite strong difference in the perception. We use a short user experience questionnaire, and with the AI agent, there is actually a strong difference. You see that they considered the system to be better with the AI agent than without. There's no difference between the live or the round-based collaboration. But this might be due mainly to kind of novelty effect, because you give them an AI tool to play with, and maybe they think, oh, it's innovative, it's new, and well, it's so far we have not controlled for that, but I guess that's part of the explanation. And last thing, well, we just confirmed that they actually try to read and to collaborate, because we observed that some students seemed very absorbed by the environment, like they stopped discussing, they stopped talking, and they just entered ideas. We thought, well, maybe actually they're just giving everything they have, not reading the ideas of the others. So maybe we should ask them to some extent how much they found inspiration in the ideas of their colleagues. Well, it seems to be quite positive. And we also found out that some they have in the app the possibility to build on someone's ideas. So it just basically their text is added to the idea of someone else. And in a lot of groups, they use that. So there is actually collaboration between the students. And we confirm that here. And we also asked them about the AI, but almost surprisingly, they were not so surprised and they were not so inspired by the ideas of the AI, which then confirms also why there's no influence or almost no influence by the AI.
How do you explain that against the fact that they judge the ideas of the AI as being more novel, and then they're not inspired by it?
I think there might be two effects. The first one is we still have a time constraint in these activities, so probably they don't take so much time in reading the ideas of the others and of the AI. And the second thing is trust, because I suspect that they don't trust that much the AI, and even if the ideas when they take the time to read it, they think, oh well, it's quite original. They might discard slightly the ideas of the AI during the activity, because they think, okay, well, I can trust better my teammates than the suggestion of the AI, without having spending time to read carefully and think about these ideas. And there have been a few recent publications on that, on the trust between AI and I've seen that this is often an issue. Trust a lot of students, a lot of people in general don't trust that much the AI, especially when you ask the AI to generate a concept, something from scratch, not just like summarizing a text or I don't know, like editing your own text.
Adding one condition in your experiment would, could test for that, right? So having the AI ideas being transmitted by a person.
Yeah, generating the.
Yeah, by a peer.
Yeah, that could be something. And yeah, here we also confirm the positive feeling towards anonymity, which was actually for us a bit surprising, given that they were sitting next to each other. We thought that there would not be so much. Initially, we thought eventually they will not care about anonymity at all, because they know each other and they are sitting next to each other most of the time, reading the screen of the neighbor. So why anonymity would matter in that case? And last thing that I want to talk to you about, a special study we did about authorship and responsibility. And so the study was done with students in software engineering. We asked them just to solve. So there were tasks where they had to choose a name for the project and some features for an app, and a very open task. And the thing is that we asked them at the end of each of these tasks to rate the 4 items at the bottom of the slide. So about responsibility, about how they felt they are an author or co-author of the selected ideas, and if the ideas were original or useful. And what we found is that actually there is quite strong difference in responsibility and authorship. So when there is an AI suggesting ideas along the student seems to feel less responsible and less author of the ideas that the group selected at the end. So for us, it was what we expected, but we did not expect to see a strong effect with only 24 students. So this suggests that if you had an AI peer, they might attribute some of the authorship, but also some of the responsibility to the AI itself, which might raise some issues. And in the context of software engineering, for example, if you start to think that the AI is responsible for the bad code that you write, then we might have a problem with people just not caring about producing bad code because, well, it's half of the responsibility is the AI that I use. So blame the AI, don't blame me. So, well, a few implications of what we've found so far, just about the ideation tool. A few things are quite obvious, but we also experimented with that, is that the activity is much more scalable when you pack it in this digital tool. And that's the feedback we got from all the teachers with whom we've done these experiments. The anonymity, I discussed that already, and also it provides a record of ideas that is maybe easier to manage than if you have just sticky notes on the whiteboard. And what we found about the artificial peers is it seems to improve the user experience, but it might be due to the novelty effect. But we did not find so many effect on the originality or the fluency, the creativity in general of the students. But one thing that we are almost done, we did an experiment with the single topic, and we're now coding all the ideas to see if actually when you prompt the system to introduce specific topics, if the students pick up these topics and use it in their own ideas. So even if the originality or creativity of the ideas is not changed significantly, maybe you can use also that as a way to steer the ideas of the group, like make them think about, I don't know, the sustainability of their project, or make them think about the ethical consideration of their ideas, because you incorporate new ideas, you introduce new ideas that are specifically targeting that. And this last experiment I spoke about, that it appears to dilute the responsibility of the student. And well, I already mentioned, but a few things that we observed, it's more anecdotal than what I presented, but we also realized that those type of activities are much more helpful if you use them at the very beginning of the process, because in some experiment we did that a few weeks after they started thinking about their project. And one of the feedback that we got many times from the student is, well, actually, we already have our ideas. So, well, we will do your activity because, well, we're here, we do the course, but we just do it for fun, not because we need to find new ideas. So finding a way to put that right after they found the problem on which they will do this brainstorming might be very useful. And what I said about the tool capture the attention of the students, in a lot of settings, we observe that you give that to the student and they just stop discussing, stop talking, and they just ideate on the computer. I don't know if it's good or bad, but the effect was impressive. But we did not record data about that, so we're not sure if it's really limiting the interaction in some way, or if it's just like transforming the interaction in a productive way because they do it with the tool and then after they discuss again. But there's not so much communication around the tool in these activities. Actually, I was longer than expected, but just to give you a few points on what we plan for the future. So we thought about, given that we didn't have a strong influence on those groups with our interaction design, we thought about different interaction design in these activities to have those AI agents helping the students. And quickly, we thought about having agents that instead of proposing new ideas, give you questions to think about the problem, and usually question in the forms of what if. And there is a researcher, Ronald Begetto, who is working a lot on that and has developed bots, chatbots that do that very well, and that you give them a problem and the chatbot actually gives you what if to try to change your perspective on the problem. You could also have a feedback provider or an ID critique who just give a feedback on the ID that you post. And these could be also configured to target some specific dimension because you can modify and adapt the prompt. So the teacher would have full control on what types of question it should ask, what point it should address on the IDs of the students. And the last thing, to not bypass the student, is to have the agent act as a critique guide. And this is not very strongly dependent on the AI, because you could almost develop questions beforehand and just give that as a grid to the students to analyze the ideas of their peer. But one thing that is quite good with the AI is that you can change and rephrase those questions so that they are really tailored to the ideas and to the problems of the students. And when you have like 30 groups who have 30 different problems, just the question of scalability of changing the questions so that they target each problem can be already useful. Okay.
Jérémy,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I would allow the audience to ask questions because this is a really nice talk.
Well, thank you.
Would you
Yeah, sure.
like to wrap up?
Yeah, I'll take 30 seconds and I'm done. Yeah, one thing is that we would like to submit a drill proposal with teacher when interested in using this tool. So if you're interested, you can come to me and we will think about your course. And well, that's all. So thank you for your attention. And